So, in a way, I guess the challenge is that how do we maintain this plurality of vision, the idea of different people bringing something and no one having the right, true one answer, while at the same time weaving, creating out of this multiplicity some notion of the common as well. How do we keep these two things together simultaneously, because we need both?
I think you'd probably have to have faith in common individuals' intelligence, that they could make that connection, that there are different groups, available to them to join this movement, environment, class struggle, something, whatever. Maybe someone sees one more important than the other, but perhaps we could, because I think I started more in a socialist vein after I sort of made my transformation, but then I started to see a lot of things in common with the environmental movement, and you see sometimes trade unionists and environmentalists getting together and finding things in common. And I think if we should probably try to have faith in that, or at least believe that it's possible that people can see the things that connect them with other groups. I think it's possible. I know I can. I think I can do it. I'm trying every day, and discerning which group has some potential or something like this. It's probably a struggle, right? I mean, that's interesting.
It can happen. And there are a lot of national groups that try to bring that about. They do it by forming coalitions. Having faith in something to happen doesn't make it happen. Never will make it happen. There's got to be good propaganda that shows to, let's start with two different groups, that they have a common thing. And you mentioned environmentalists and unionists. But we need larger coalitions. And I don't believe that we should take the approach that seems to be prevalent in Ann Arbor. Let's start something. But look around and see that there are so many national groups that do form coalitions, and support them. And let's face it, most of them are socialist and communist organizations. And I urge people to get over whatever hang-ups they may have about that, study, listen to the local people who know about it, and then commit themselves. And I urge some of you to think about that approach in your future years.
The only principle of socialism, I think, that has insinuated itself into the fabric of this culture is the cooperative movement. We have credit unions, we have consumer cooperatives, we have producer cooperatives, and these have somehow been tolerated because they aren't considered in most places to be a threat to the rest of society. But here is a kind of structure that has worked. We have a student cooperative housing here at the university, which has grown since I was in it, and the food co-ops, I've participated in a number of those, and they survive and they thrive. And they're at least an example in the society and the culture of something that is working. But I think that Alan, well, when you say that you want to stay grounded, I think Alan is talking about this too, when he says you have to provide something concrete that is a unifying theme that will
piece of ground to fight over.
Draw people into the process. And if you find something concrete in a co-op, like a farmer's market, where people find something concrete that they value, that they are seeking through this process, that's something to build upon. The word religion, except for the use of the word faith, the religion has not been addressed here at all. Religion, I think, provides an example of the way a social movement can be organized. The radical right has organized through the mechanism of religion in this culture, and I'm not suggesting that class consciousness can be developed through religion. I'm not even suggesting that religion itself should be used as a mechanism, but as an example of a mode of social organization that has been very effective in this society. The United States is, for all of its materialism, is amazingly captured by the fantasy of religion, the opiate. And it's one of the black holes into which people descend when they get into a crisis. And they need something like a cooperative movement, something like a support group to help them. Well, religion in many places provides them with a support group, but it doesn't have to be a religious environment where that happens.
Well, the movement was very much for people in a support group, and in a way, you know, a kind of a religion of the being in the struggle for the larger good, driven by the higher principle, the global identification. And in some way, I think that the whole political culture lacks from a clear continuity of that movement that had some identity and was in struggle. And that's the difference with the co-ops and other institutions that are managed to find a humane way to be among themselves and exist in this society. But the need is to be in struggle with the dominant system to change that system, to have the vision we need. You know, everybody understands in some way or another that they're getting screwed in this world. How we see that as a common understanding is the endeavor of the movement that is continually inviting to join your struggle in with our struggle, one struggle, many fronts. And each of us are a front, and each of us are also traumatized by having grown up in a very repressive world. And that trauma is different for every person. And some people it's, you know, totally horrendous, and other people we kind of, you know, manage through it. But it is a common experience, and I think we need to develop more of that sense that we're building a new society, and each of us is injured, and each of us has a way of helping one another. And I do think that creating an organization that represents the continuity of the movement and is global, tries to make connections with the struggles all over the place, is very positive, and people should join. Whether it's, you know, the Midnight Notes, you know, a continuity of committed engagement over time, and it does make a product, and it contributes to thought, and that's in some way, in people in college, you know, begin to make identifications. Are you joining up? Are you finding a group of comrades that are your allies and you see as part of your community for your life? And that's what the movement is, and people who are touched by it are, you know, in it because it makes a connection with the heart. The movement for democratic society, which is I'm trying to get engaged with, which is sort of a regeneration of the old SDS, new SDS, and the multi-generational and international, is an effort to see how do you have both a committed group of activists and also alliance and coalition with other groups that want to be associated that aren't quite part of the same thing, but understanding we are all in the same predicament. And it's, you know, an organization is in somehow needed in each place to provide continuity, a place of identification. Where do you go? And so I encourage people toward, you know, joining the theory to some practice of organizational commitment. And as I've said, the particular battlefield right now with Capitol and Ann Arbor is on the library parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
On 5th Street.
I think that we'll probably have to close the discussion there, but want to thank first everybody for coming, to Matt for organizing, doing all of the legwork for the event, bringing Peter here, and most of all to our friends from Toledo and Bowling Green for making the trip. Thank you very much, and to Peter, thank you very much for coming.